Stephen, we got Sanjay on the line. What do you want to ask him?
For finding investors, what mediums or channels have you found to be the most effective in reaching out?
I think number one, I would say podcast. It really is a very strong medium. The more number of podcasts you go to, the more masses you reach out to, and you give out your voice. So that's definitely there. Meetup comes second. Go on these meetups, go and meet with people. Now that COVID has gone away, a lot of people do this in person. So shaking hands with people is obviously that. Expositions, all these places, GOP, that's where we met as well. So that's definitely another one. Social media is a big platform. It's a very strong platform. And I know that, I don't know if you have read the book, The Trust Economy by Philip Christian, but that is a really good book. Try to look at that because people go on social media to do certain things, but then you have to also remember that trust is something that comes with time and it is earned, and you got to do it the right way.
I'm Brian Briscoe, host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. And this podcast is different than everything else out there. I bring together a new and an experienced investor on each episode, and I let the aspiring investor ask the questions that they need answered. So if you're an aspiring investor yourself, you probably will have the exact same questions. Now, before we get to this episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button below and that little bell to make sure you get notified every time we post a new episode. And now, enjoy the show. Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe, and I'm very excited for another Ask the Expert episode coming your way. Today, we have two great people on the line with us, both of whom I met at the GOB Network Conference in Chicago about a month ago. Welcome to the show, Sanjay Hegde and Stephen Dall'Orso.
Thank you, Brian, for inviting us on the show. I'm super excited for this, and I hope I bring value to your listeners.
Having met you and talked with you a little bit, a couple of weeks back, I'm positive you will. Let's dive right in. And as is tradition, our experienced investor is up to the plate first. For some reason, I like baseball references. Sanjay, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us an idea of your background and what got you into apartment investing.
Awesome. Yeah, it's an interesting journey. In fact, by my name itself, you wouldn't recognize that I'm of Indian origin. And I moved to the United States in the year 2001. Before that, I have a formal education in pharmacy. So I'm a pharmacist by education. But when I came to the US, I could not practice it because I did not have a formal education over here. Now, what ended up happening is I came here in the year 2001, and usually you get your physical green card within the first 2 weeks, and you have that work authorization. That did not happen to me. I did not get it for like 3 months. For whatever reason, whatever was going on at that time did not happen. And I learned one thing is when a man does not have a job, he makes babies. So, my wife gets pregnant and I need to go find a job now. I get into this point where I'm trying to figure out what to do. And there was this gentleman who had a temp agency. He said, hey, this is not something that you have studied before, but there is a job available. It's a manufacturing place. They manufacture lithium batteries for space defense kind of applications. The company called SAFT. I said, okay. So I get there and I start on the third shift at $7.25, assembling cells in the dry room. And then later on, 9/11 happens. And there was an opportunity for me to become a maintenance helper because they started working 7 days a week and weekend shifts. So they needed somebody to help the maintenance mechanic, changing the electrodes and things like that. And I took that one because it was paying a little bit more. 1 year into it, there was an opportunity to become a full-blown mechanic on a second shift. So I took that job because it was going to pay me up to $14, and which was better than that $7 I started off with. I did that. I did 90 hours a week almost by doing, all of my second shift, half of third shift, half of first shift. I was building relationships at that time with, supervisors as well. So when there was an opportunity for a production supervisor, I applied for that job and I got that job. Then there was an opportunity to become a sales rep for the Northeastern region. I applied for that job. They interviewed me. They offered me the job. And I did pretty well in that first year or so. And they promoted me as the sales manager for North America. All during this time, with the growth was also coming money. Yeah. And, I did this. And then they promoted me as the director of sales for Americas and Asia. Obviously, you make more money then. And then as vice president of sales and marketing, the growth kept going. And as you kept growing, the money started coming. And somebody told me the best way to invest, Sanjay, because you're always traveling, you have no time to spend the money, is to invest in real estate. So I said, okay. And I did not know a whole lot about real estate at that time.
Yep.
So, but I knew that there is money to be made. So I invested in single family homes, and I invested passively in multifamily and storage housing. So self storages. And over a period of time, I realized that I was losing money in single family because there were so many challenges that were coming in it. And then multifamily, as a passive investor, I was making money. So this continued for a while and I was traveling busy. I was like all over the place. I was either in Australia or China or Japan. I was just all over the place all the time. What happens when something like this happens is you don't get time freedom. You don't get his time with your family. And I could not see my son grow at all because I was never there. And when he was in high school, obviously I got him a nice car. And guess what happens with every children? The first car you get them, they're going to wreck it. That's exactly what he ended up doing. And that was the day when I really felt that I was not there for him. And I wish I was there for him. It is, as a father, it doesn't matter how often you bonded with them or not, you're still a father and you care about your kids. When I realized I needed that time freedom. That was my biggest why, because I have a daughter who will soon be 13, and I want to spend more time with her. I want to be there, before she gets into college, because me and my son bonded, yes, more after I did, actually during COVID, because he was doing everything remote and I was working from home. So that's when I really got to, know him more, and we bonded even more. Yeah. So time freedom is something that I learned the value of it. And for that very reason, I started off with Blue Ring Investors. But before going to Blue Ring Investors, what ended up happening is when something like that happened, I was trying to think in my head what business I should really go into. Because it is very hard when you have a W-2 job and you're trying to make a transition. It's a tough decision to make. And I was trying to figure out what business should I really go into. So first, like every other Indian, I thought, okay, liquor store, and in North Carolina, it's all state-owned. So, well, I had to let go of that. Then I thought, okay, 7-Elevens, man, we are associated with that, right? So we'll go with this one. Well, one of my childhood friends, he said, Sanjay, don't get into this business, because he was managing 2 gas stations. He said, don't get into that. It's too much of a headache. So that is when Dave Lindahl's group, RE Mentor, had come to Charlotte. And I was like, hey, this is something to do with multifamily. So let me go and check this out. And I went there, I checked that out. Then I signed up for their boot camp. And at the boot camp, it was a 3-day boot camp. They kind of gave you quite a lot of information, but just enough information where you can get dangerous, right? Yeah. So I said, I need to sign up for their mentorship program to better understand it. So all of 2020, I kind of took the time to network, understand, do underwritings and all of those, and understand the nuances of this business. And in 2021, I started off with Blue Ring Investors. Nice. And since then, it's been a beautiful journey. We've closed in on several properties. Like I have a 65-unit property in Omaha, Nebraska, a 54-unit property in Killeen, Texas, a 42-unit in Winston-Salem. Nice. A 32-unit in Tennessee. And we had an opportunity to partner on a 700-unit ground-up self-storage unit, climate controlled, in Charlotte. So we have that, and now working on a 75-unit property in Port Arthur. Nice. So, nice. You guys have gotten a lot of traction. You said you started in 2021, so that's a lot of traction in a very short amount of time, and amazing what you've been able to do. And I'll just highlight a couple of things. I mean, there was a period, and most people who listen to this show know that I was active duty military for 20 years, but there was a period where I was going to a lot of cool places. I mean, you talk about, you went to China, you went to Australia, been there, done that. But, there's a period where I was basically home a week, gone a week, home a week, gone a week. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I went to some really, really cool places. But after, a month of doing that, it was just like,
can I just stay home with my family? It's just like, I don't, Panama again. I mean, okay, but can I just stay home with my family for a week? And I think that's probably how you were feeling as well, where it's just like, okay, I mean, China's cool, Australia's cool, but gosh, I'm missing the kids, I'm missing them grow up. And that's where I was.
Yeah, I know you can relate, and that's the thing, right? And your job was even more stressful. At least mine was nothing to do with other things. Mine was more to do with, because I was in France every quarter
Mhm.
because production meetings. But yours probably was even more stressful, probably because you
Yeah.
were in active military. So I can imagine.
Yeah, we had some stressful times, and we had some not so stressful times. I understand your reason for getting in. It's just, I've got a bunch of kids at home, and I really want to get to know them. And I missed first steps, I missed birthdays, I missed Christmases, and I think that's a common trend for people who come on the podcast. Both for the experienced investors and the aspiring investors. It's mostly, I want to spend time with people that I care about and not spend time working, and that's really, I think, what it comes down to for a lot. Speaking of, something I ask everybody, and you've alluded to it already, but I ask everybody about their big burning why. So if you can just more specifically say, what is your why?
There are two whys for this. Number one, as I mentioned, it is time freedom.
Yep.
The second thing is giving back to the community. The thing is, when I first came to America, I started off in a rental house, and I noticed that how important it is to have a safe and secure dwelling for every single person, because that is the basic necessity everybody should have. And for me, I believe that you know children who are raised in a good atmosphere, a good environment, they turn out to be good citizens.
Yeah.
And that is something that I feel in this particular thing. I give back to the community in my own ways by giving. When I buy a property, we buy it, we do so many improvements to it, and we make it safer and a better environment. We actually improve the community around it. And
Yeah.
that, I feel, is one of the ways I give back to the community. And that is my biggest why as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Both are super important. I especially appreciate the giving back aspect. I think everybody wants time freedom for one reason or another, but giving back is huge. Well, let's shift gears slightly here. Let's talk about one of the apartments that you guys, or one of the deals you guys have done. Pick your favorite, but give us some details on what type of properties Blue Ring invests in.
Yeah, no. So as anybody, we invest in properties that are actually. I don't do complete flips. Okay, so I do it in emerging markets with some value add, class B and class C kind of properties. Okay, and where we can do some value adds, increase the rent, get it to the market rent, and then sell it where everybody makes a profit. That's pretty much, in a nutshell, is what we are looking for. Obviously, we look for B and C class. It's only because, as I mentioned to you, it is one of the ways to give back to them a better place, a nicer place. So that is the main thing, because a lot of these guys cannot afford to buy a nicer house or live in a much better apartment. So that is that. To me, I think there are a lot of properties out there that, as I mentioned to you, but one which is what I really like is the one where I do what is called as lessons learned, because that's important in our field. The more lessons you learn, or more you partner with people who have more of these lessons learned, is important. Because when everything is running smooth as an operator, yeah, it is good, but you need to hit some roadblocks. You need to hit some of these things to go through that experience, so that you know how to make certain changes to your plans, your business plans, and what you're going to do. So one of my properties in Texas, we had some really good business plans, but going in, you don't, you do your due diligence, you see certain things, but you cannot get every single thing done. Things change. Like when we were supposed to do some of the changes, we wanted to make the bathrooms, and we wanted to do some of those floorings. At that given point of time, this asbestos thing was not a problem for us. But guess what? Boom, it hits us where the rules got changed. We had to get the testing done before we could change anything. And guess what? Now you have asbestos issues. So now how are you going to change that plan? What are you going to do to your business plan? What are the changes that you thought you had thought about doing it? Now, a lot of those things, the same budget that you had is no longer that same budget if you want to do every single bit of this. So then you have to wait because you have the officials who have to come in. You got to get this asbestos abatement kind of taken care of. There are so many things that happens that hits your timeline. It hits your capex, and all of these things you got to try to figure out how you're going to make this all work. Because at the end of the day, yes, we are there to better our tenants, but at the same time, we also have a very moral obligation to towards our investors, and we want to make sure that they are happy. And all these things within a certain boundaries that you have to start setting up and making it work. So that's pretty much what I can tell you. I don't want to go too details into it, but this kind of gives you an idea about the challenges that you go through when you are into this kind of field.
Yeah, and you mentioned something. I mean, it doesn't matter how good you do at due diligence. You can't know everything about a given property, and things are going to happen. And we've had water mains break, and in your case, not something we could have prevented, but in your case, city rules changed. And if something like that changes, you have to comply. And so it's very much we've learned it's your capex budget is a moving target, as you go through. And what I've learned is you have to prioritize. You have to prioritize your capital expenses. I've also learned not to do the least important capex stuff first, because when something else does come up, or when lumber prices skyrocket and your cost to renovate go up, you got to be able to adjust. Very good points there. Thanks for sharing that. Now, last question for you before we bring Stephen on. What's next for you?
Obviously, we want to continue doing what we are doing and try to get into senior housing, because that's something that's very close to me, because there are a lot of seniors out there, and a lot of us will get there very soon. But there is a huge deficit in it. So that is something that we are going to do. But more than anything else, what I like to do is continue to do is educate my investors. So that's why we have our webinars on a monthly basis, so that we can educate them. Because for me, educated investors are always the best investors. To me, educating them is important. That's why we have lead magnets on my website. We have newsletters that we send out on a regular basis. Obviously, this webinar is important. My partner, Dr. Jeanette, she has put together a video tutorial of you can learn everything within a week about passive investments. So that's also there in it. So if anybody wants to be part of it, feel free to go to my website, www.blueringinvestors.com. We also have YouTube videos available, and we are on Instagram, Facebook. So do follow us, like, share, and feel free to comment on what more you want to hear about it to educate yourself.
Awesome. And we'll put links to the website and social media in the show notes. So anybody who's interested, definitely go and check those out. So now, switching gears a little bit, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being on. And like I said, great meeting you at the GOB conference a month ago, and excited to get you on. Do us a favor, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from, what you've been doing, and what got you into real estate investing.
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated from Michigan State. I took the corporate route in real estate, as most people do once they graduate with a degree. I'm 25, so I graduated at 22. I went to work for a mobile home private corporation. So I was on the acquisition side. And as we all know, mobile homes are recession resistant. It's one of the best asset types. That company actually got bought out. But to fast forward, I've always had the interest of real estate. But I wasn't seeing the cash flow on my side. I was making people money, but I wasn't getting my fair share. And that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
And so
It says every employee everywhere, by the way. Yes.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people say, oh, you got to get your MBA, you got to do this, you got to do that. At some point, you have to believe in yourself. You have to go out and get it. And that's what an entrepreneur really is, wherever they come from. You've seen entrepreneurs from all over the place, no degrees, different countries, this and that. At this stage in my life where I'm 25, I'm not married, no kids, a little bit of equity. I decided to form a fund where I'm the GP and I'm looking to raise capital from LPs. Yeah, I've always kept reading about investments and finance. And the reason that I like real estate versus like the stock market or futures or options is in real estate, you can control the asset, where you go, you mess with futures or options, which are very, very speculative. There's more certainty with real estate. That's how I feel.
Yeah, there's a lot more. And you say control. I mean, if you buy stock in Coca-Cola, I mean, the best I can do to control my stock in Coca-Cola is go to the grocery store and buy more Coke,
Right.
And it doesn't put a big impact on it. Real estate, you are in control. I mean, there's some market forces that you can't control, but there are so many things that you can control with your investment, which I love it too. Good point. Degree in real estate from I almost said University of Michigan. I apologize. You said Michigan State, right?
Yeah.
Lansing, not Ann Arbor.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to go to Michigan. I didn't get in. So
yeah.
I have a degree in hospitality business and a minor in real estate.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, I actually got into Ann Arbor. I applied there as a PhD student, 20 something years ago. And for some reason they let me in. I ended up going to Minnesota instead. Part of me always wonders, truth told, I didn't like Minnesota that much, which is part of the reason I went active duty. But I mean, had I gone to Michigan and liked it, I don't know. Maybe it'd be a different result. But anyway,
we'd be speaking to someone else.
yeah, somebody else would have come up with this idea for the podcast.
Yeah.
25, launched your fund and rip roaring, ready to go. Something else I'll point out, I mean, you're also at a point in your life where you can take risks. You can take a significant amount of risks. When I was 25, just looking back, I had 2 kids already. My second child was born when I was 25 years old, and I didn't feel I wanted to do what you were doing, but I didn't feel like I could take that risk at the time. Anyway, I could have is the right answer. Let's skip over me and let's talk more about you again. Apologize. Let's talk about your why. What is your reason and your big burning why, your motivation for apartment investing?
Yeah, so kind of what Sanjay said too. Financial independence. I've read a lot and I've listened to a lot of speakers, and it always comes down to your finances, right? The number one reason why people get divorced is financial reasons. And so I'm very risk averse. I've become so risk averse with myself and what I do with my life that I want to be financially free first and then go through life, get married, have a family. I just feel that once you have that element, I mean, you can do whatever you want really with your life.
It sure does help. I mean, money doesn't buy happiness, but it gives you time. It gives you a lot of other resources, and it definitely helps. And I think you're right. A lot of relationships are strained because of lack of money. Yeah. So having a little extra money, it's a good problem to have.
And just like what Sanjay said, I do want to give back to the community different ways. I've been very fortunate in my education career to receive scholarships. And I would love to have a scholarship in my name, at Michigan State one day. That would kind of be a dream of mine.
Yeah, that's actually something we have in common, except I have no interest in Michigan State. University of Utah is my alma mater, and I've always thought about, wouldn't it be cool to have set up a scholarship at the University of Utah? Just be able to help kids, who couldn't normally, I guess, afford school, go to school. And quite frankly, the only reason I was able to go to college was because I was able to get a scholarship and get somebody else to pay for school for me. For me, it's kind of I don't know if it's a pay it back or pay it forward, but either way, it's something that I also want to do. So good on you for that. Very much appreciate you sharing. And now we're coming to my favorite part of the podcast, where I say, Stephen, we got Sanjay on the line. What do you want to ask him?
Yeah. So my top question for you would be, for finding investors, what mediums or channels have you found to be the most effective in reaching out to prospective?
Of course, I think number one, I would say podcast. It really is a very strong medium. The more number of podcasts you go to, the more masses you reach out to, and you give out your voice. So that's definitely there. Meetup comes second. Go on these meetups, go and meet with people. Now that COVID has gone away, a lot of people do this in person. So shaking hands with people is obviously that. Expositions, all these places, GOP, that's where we met as well. So that's definitely another one. Social media is a big platform. It's a very strong platform. And I know that, I don't know if you have read the book, The Trust Economy by Philip Christian, but that is a really good book. Try to look at that because people go on social media to do certain things, but then you have to also remember that trust is something that comes with time and it is earned, and you got to do it the right way. So, that is something that it will teach you about how to do that. So these are all some good ways to, attract your customer. And I'll tell you one thing that Brian had talked about is brand image. As he mentioned out there, you can have this fun logo behind you and everything, but who is the main actor? Who's the main person? That is you. And you are a brand. The other things are just names around you, but you are the brand. You are the person, and that's something that Brian put across that day at the GOP really, really well. And that is something that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely say work on that as well.
Yeah, and I'll add to it. I mean, Sanjay said it, but I just want to emphasize the point is it takes time. I think when I first started, we got a property under contract really quickly. And, I was like, oh crap, now we got to raise $2 million. Oh my goodness. And I started going to these meetups, hoping to find somebody who would invest with me. And trust, it takes time to build trust, and I don't think I've ever met somebody once on one conversation and had them, yeah, sure, I'm going to wire you $50,000, right? But it's something that you have to commit to, and it's something that's going to take time. It wasn't the first podcast episode that, started bringing people into the fold. It wasn't the first LinkedIn post that started bringing into the fold. Over time, you build that trust, and social media is great because you can put it on social media and people can look at it at their leisure. And same thing with podcasts. You can put a podcast out there, people can listen to it anytime. But when you start accumulating and pushing out more and more and more content, and when you start seeing people again and again and again at meetups, or again and again and again at conferences, that's how you build the trust. And that's when people start investing.
Excellent. Yeah, that's definitely something that I'm working on right now, being 1 month in. But it does take time. Yeah.
Yep. Just remember that. Just remember it takes time, and don't give up.
Excellent. Another question I had, what conferences would you recommend for someone starting out?
That's a very good question. I think GOP is a good one. Of course,
yeah,
it was very interesting. Honestly, why I like GOB was most of the time you go to any of the other conferences like NFINCon or MFIN or all of these others, they're more focused towards either bringing somebody in as a student, or it's always something to do with investors. But most of the people who come over there are actually students who are trying to learn. They really don't give you a lot of educational thing, which GOB actually did a good job of. I think so. That's why I really would like, but all of these are good ones. The good thing about going to all these networking events is that you learn probably might not learn more at the event itself, but you learn from meeting with the people, because every single person at the network has a story. And if you keep an open mind and open ears, you get to learn so much.
Yeah. Hitting your question, which conference is the best? I think it depends on what you're looking to get. And Sanjay's absolutely right. You go to some of these conferences, if it's somebody who has a coaching program, these conferences are set up to funnel people into the coaching program. All right. So some of them are thinly veiled pitch fests. All right. So, I mean, if you're looking at an educational program, those are the ones you want to go to. If you're looking for passive investors, a lot of passive investors don't go to the Pitch Fest one. GOB Network, if it's an education, GOB Network had a little bit of something for everybody. And there were a handful of passive investors there, but I would say it really depends on what you're looking to get out of it. And just realize that most people that go to these conferences that are real estate, multifamily, educational in nature are looking to do and not to passively invest. I would say, GOB is one that was actually good at both, but I would say focus on the conferences that fit your need the best.
Yeah, that's a great answer, definitely.
Yeah. All right, back to you. What's the next question you got?
And then I would say, and you can answer this professionally or personally, but if there's one thing you could do differently, what would it be?
Well, honestly, Stephen, I would not change anything. The reason why is because I am the person that I am today is because of my experiences and my whatever it was. I don't like to use the word failures, but I use the word lessons learned because that's what it is. And this is what I am. It's because of that. I would not change anything because I believe that God has a reason. He puts you in a certain place for a reason, and he puts you through a certain experience for a reason. So who am I to defy God? I'm not going to say that anything is different. I think I enjoyed that journey. I'm enjoying it now. And whatever is kept for me, I'll try to enjoy it and learn from it. Yeah. So that's just how I would present it.
I am confident. I've thought about this a lot. It's been asked this question a lot. It seems like it's a fairly common question on podcasts, actually. I'm confident that, every major decision that I've made in my life, I've made the best possible decision, given my mindset and given the situation at hand. If I had, that one do-over button, I wish I could rewind the clock 10 years ago and have the courage to, take a little more risks with real estate when I was a little younger. I mean, I'm 40 something right now. Had I been a little more aggressive at purchasing real estate earlier, I'd be in a much better situation right now, more than likely. I mean, there's obviously the chance that the deal could have gone bust, but I wish I would have had the courage to do what I started doing with multifamily earlier. And it honestly wasn't until, and going back to what Sanjay said, I mean, it took several years to get me there because I think I had to feel the pain. I had to feel the, leaving the family.
If you want to be an entrepreneur, then you can't take rejection. Don't be an entrepreneur.
It wasn't rejection. I was comfortable. Yeah. And that was a big thing for me is I was comfortable. I was comfortable being in the military. I was comfortable, with, the promotions, with the pay, with everything else. And it wasn't until, one of the deployments that, I missed another birthday and another Christmas and everything else. And I realized that the longer I'm in the military, the more often I'm going to miss birthdays and Christmases. It wasn't until, I had that moment where I was in kind of a mental and emotional pain that it really became necessary. I mean, yeah, I think that's really what led to it. I think Sanjay's answer was perfect. I wouldn't change anything. Who knows what I would be, but if I had one do-over, I wish I would have had the courage or the foresight to, start buying more properties earlier. But
I think you're doing a good right thing right now, Stephen. You are getting into something real early. So that's definitely a good thing. And I'm sure you'll have your own lessons learned and the pains and gains that come with it. Just that you've taken a certain path that we are taking now. And yes, do we sometimes feel that, if we would have started early, things could have been any different? Absolutely, yes. But as I said, it is what it is, right? We are here right now. So.
Yeah.
All right, we are about out of time. Amazing how time flies, but we're about out of time. So one last question for each of you as we wrap this up. Sanjay, you get to go first. How can listeners learn more about you?
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, they can go to my website, www.duringinvestors.com. There are lead magnets in there, which pretty much talks about, there's a book that I put together for first-time investors. Like they don't understand the lingo, right? What cash on cash means, or what does an accredited investor mean? and all of these things. So I've answered all of those questions. Those are the basic necessity that every single person needs to know. They can also listen to my webinars that I've put in, that have been posted up there. Obviously, the second webinar that I did, which talks about what questions one should ask a syndicator or an operator. There are like 41 of those that I've put in there. All of them are very important ones. They can definitely ask these questions before they make an investment so that they feel comfortable about it. So, as I said, I'm there on YouTube, Instagram, as well as Facebook. Feel free to follow us on that. We'll always keep you posted on the latest, as well as educate you. And if there are any things that you want us to talk about in our next webinar to educate you, feel free to just throw in a line and we'll do that for you.
Awesome. All right. Appreciate that. And we'll have links to the website in there and webinar replays, everything he mentioned, it's all there. And I'm on the website right now checking it out. It's a very well done website. Stephen, same question for you. How can listeners learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably the two main forms of communication. You can text me, my number 248-773-9006, or you can email me at Stephen with a PH at theorsogroup.com. Those two would be the best ways.
Awesome. Well, and one thing that I'll mention to people listening, people don't give their contact information out if they don't want to be contacted. So just keep that in mind. If you're interested in learning more about any of these two, definitely reach out and check them out. That said, thanks to both of you again for coming on the show. Appreciate your time. And this was fun.
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure to subscribe. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community yet, which we call the Tribe of Titans, you are missing out. Get 30 days free by clicking the link in the description to this episode, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.